Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Enrique Hasso. I am the Director of TMD SAS in the Texas Health Education Service here in Austin, Texas. And joining me today is a familiar face, Sulema Melendez from the office hours of TMD SAS. Sulema, can you introduce us to our guests today?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say thank you for joining everyone. Today's session is going to be a strategy session with the Altus Assessment team. Here we have Gabriella and Adam, and I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves. I'll start with Gabriella.
Yeah, thanks, Salima. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabriella. I'm a customer success manager here at Altus. I'm located in Toronto, Canada. So it's a little bit colder up here as it is down in Texas, of course. But thank you so much for having us today, and I'm really looking forward to your questions.
Perfect. I'll jump straight in. So my name is Adam. It's very nice to meet you all. I'm a senior manager on the customer success team along with Gabby. I'm also based in Toronto, but if you can get from my accent, I am from Ireland. So I'm trying speak a little slower because sometimes my accent kicks in and it's a little hard to understand. So I'm looking forward to speaking with you all today.
Yeah, so thank you guys so much for introducing yourselves. As always, and always feel free to bring in those questions, type them into the chat, and then we'll go ahead and answer those at the end of the session after the presentation. So we'll go ahead and get it started, Gabriella.
Sure. Yep. Adam, you just let me know and I change the slide for you.
Fantastic. Perfect. So we can do a run through a few things for you today. As Alina mentioned, please throw some questions in the chat. We'll make sure to get to those at the end if we can. We'll try and leave plenty of time. If you want to go ahead onto the next slide, please, Gabby. Fantastic. So a few of the things that we're going to touch on. So I'm sure some of you are very well in the knowledge of CASPer and all things Altus Suite, but for those of you who are pretty new to it, we're going to run through things in general as well. So we're going to touch on what Altus Suite is, which is CASPer, Snapshot, and Duet, and give a little overview of those. We're going to do a run through of the Take Altus website. Gabby's going to go through, show you what the applicants will see, where you can find some resources, some just really, really important things. We will give a little overview on score delivery. Jump in on some resources, and then, like I mentioned, we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. So please don't be shy, pop those in the chat or just unmute yourself at the end. So we'll jump right in. Go ahead, Gabby. Perfect. So what is Altus Suite? One of the main questions maybe you get or that your applicants are asking themselves. So Altus Assessments basically created some products that help programs understand a little bit more about their applicants other than just their academics and how book smart they are. So we have CASPer, which is it was our first and probably our most used product, which is a simulative SJT, so a situational judgment test. So it screens for applicants' social intelligence and professionalism. Then we have Duet, which is new this year. It's being used with our undergraduate medical programs. And essentially what Duet does, it aligns the program's priorities with the applicants. So they're looking kind of like at their values and how the applicant's values and the program's values align together. And then third and finally, we have Snapshot, which is an asynchronous one-way interview where we ask applicants questions and they have 2 minutes to answer questions themselves. So we'll run through each one of those in a little bit more detail next. But again, any questions to any of those specific ones, please don't be shy. So what makes Altus Suite unique? So programs use Altus Assessments and Altus Suite to learn more about their applicants as a person. So I think to show where we started, CASPer was created at McMaster University here in Ontario. And it was created by their medical program for their medical program. They just wanted to learn more about their applicants, essentially. They were getting 4,000 plus applicants every single year, but could only interview 500. So they were essentially pushing 3,500 applicants to the side, primarily based on how book smart they were. So they wanted to learn more about those applicants. So what they did was they created CASPer, which is this online situational judgment test. And then a few other programs got wind of it and asked if they could use it. And now, of course, CASPer is used across North America, the UK, Australia, and it's very well known. So it has a lot of research and data behind it. There is 15 years plus of research behind it. We continuously working with the programs that we work with to run case studies, presentations. We document everything that we can, and we are transparent as possible and put those onto our website and share those with applicants, with our programs as well. And it just promotes a fair admissions process from our perspective. You know, we're trying to eliminate any bias. We're trying to reduce demographic differences across different things. I know that's always going to be an issue. There's something that we heavily focus on here at Altus. So we have, you know, a full research team, psychometrics teams. We have a tech team. So we're always developing the test as we move along as well. Next slide, please, Gabby. So what is CASPer? And I'm sure a lot of you know what this is, but for those of you who are potentially new to it, as I mentioned earlier, CASPer is an online situational judgment test. And one of the big benefits of CASPer is extremely accessible. You don't have to travel to take it anywhere. You can take it from the comfort of your own home, a library, internet cafe. All you need to take the test is a laptop, internet connection, and a working web camera. So we're testing the applicant's ability to relate to social intelligence and professionalism. And we do that in a, let's say, a 100-minute test, roughly. And what they'll do is they'll watch a video of an everyday dilemma, or they'll read a script of an everyday dilemma. They'll have 30 seconds to reflect on that. And then they have 5 minutes to answer 3 open-ended questions. And what we're looking for is the rationale of why they would do something. Not just, yeah, I would do this, or no, I wouldn't do this. We want to know why. We want to know the rationale and the reasons behind it. And from that, the test is rated. It's rated by different raters for each section of the test. And the programs will then get one single Z-score. I usually say Z-score, sorry, we're in Canada, which is easily interpreted into their admissions process. So CASPer is really that situational judgment test that kind of shows the applicants' professionalism and social intelligence as they move forward into the program. Next slide, please, Gabby. So the test format has changed a little bit. So for those of you familiar with CASPer in the past couple of years, this year we have changed the format of it. So in the past, the CASPer test was 12 scenarios, 12 sections, and they were all typed responses. So the applicants would have 5 minutes to answer 3 open-ended questions by typing. And we know that's a question we get is like, what if you're not a good typer? CASPer can be answered in point format. It can be answered in very small paragraphs. It's not a matter of whoever can write the most is going to score the highest. It's if you can just get your point across within different ways, of typing your answer. But this year we've changed it up a little bit. So the total test now is 15 sections. 9 of those are going to be typed, and 6 are actually going to be video-based responses. So instead of applicants typing their responses, they're going to watch the video or see the scenario. Then they're going to have the 3 questions, and they'll have 1 minute to record their answer on video. Like I am now, they're just going to answer it. They don't have to type. They don't have to do anything else. And then once they finish, they can submit. They don't have to take the full minute. They can submit when they're ready. So the test will take a tiny bit longer, but it's still going to be roughly within that, let's say, 100 to 120 minute factor. Next slide, please, Gabby. Okay, so what is the CASPer approach? So this is kind of, I'll run through kind of an example of a scenario that we run. This is a past scenario. And I'm sure some of you have seen these. There are a number of examples on our website, which Gabby will show you shortly. But this is an example of the video that an applicant would watch. And in the video, it's just a screenshot there. But this gentleman is trying to return a toy to a store. He doesn't have the receipt. And his excuse is he's trying to get some money for his daughter who needs a prescription. On the other hand, it is the cashier has just started this job. She can't give the refund without a receipt. She'd be putting her job in jeopardy. And then at the end of the scenario is played out, it's about a 1-minute video. They turn to the camera, which is in kind of the third person perspective, and say, what do you think I should do? Okay. You can see some of the questions associated there on the right. And I know you're probably wondering, okay, what would I do in this situation? And like I mentioned earlier, like you'll see that first question, what do you tell the other employee? Go ahead and give the refund or buy by the store policy. Justify your answer. That justify your answer is where applicants kind of can really open up, and that's how they can score well within CASPer. It's not just, yeah, I'd give them the refund. You want to know why would you give the refund? Okay, and it's the same with the other questions. So that's kind of how CASPer is processed. That's how it's rated, and that's how the applicants will see it. Again, applicants will go through a full practice test. Once they've signed up for their profile, it's on the website as well. They can take it as many times as they want. We have the new AV factor as well, so they'll have examples of the typed scenarios, as well as the AV scenarios as well. So they can run through that as many times as they want. It's not a question really we get is, will applicants familiarize themselves with the questions that come up? They're different. The questions, the CASPer test is always changing. No test is going to be the exact same as another one. So if I took the test last week, I can't call up Gabby, who's taking the test next week, and say, here are the questions that came up for me. Good luck. Do you have an extra week to prepare? The question sets will always be different through the whole test cycle. Okay, so they can practice as many times as they want. It's just familiarizing yourself with the layout, the format of the test. Okay, I have a limited amount of time to answer these questions. Make sure that I'm in the right set to do it. If they go into that blinded and not knowing the format, it can be a little bit tougher. So we do highly recommend that they take the practice test. That is free. It's on our website once they've signed up for their profile. Next slide, please, Gabby. Thank you very much. So CASPer scores are only valid for one admission cycle. This has been the case, and it always has been. So because the test is always changing, we're developing it. As you've just seen, we're doing AV sections now. And one of the reasons is the way the CASPer is rated is applicants are directly compared between their peers when they're being tested and being rated. And if CASPer scores from previous years are being accepted for this year, they're not being compared to the direct peers that will be going into their class, their admissions cycle. So that's why we're continuously developing the test, so applicants cannot take it once and it's good for 5 or so years. It's good for one admission cycle. We don't say 1 year, because if you take it in December and then the new admission cycle starts in May, you will have to take it again then. It's for the one admission cycle. Go ahead, please. Okay, applicant results and quartiles. So previously we didn't give results to applicants, and it's something that we had debated quite a lot, gone back and forth. Some programs liked that we didn't give results. Some programs wanted us to give some sort of a results and feedback to applicants. And we played around with it for quite a while, because what we found was if we told an applicant, hey, you got a Z score of a negative 0.2. I had no idea what a Z-score was before I started working at Altus, and I'm sure a lot of people out there may not know what a Z-score is. They may see the negative and assume they failed. You cannot fail the CASPer test, okay? There's a certain amount of applicants that can perform better or worse than you, but you can't fail it. So we don't want to confuse them more by giving them a Z-score and maybe have them detract an application because of that. And the other reason is programs use CASPer in different ways. One program may use it in a threshold of a -1, let's say. One program uses it in a rubric or formula. They use it in a number of different ways. So a -2 may get you into 10 programs over here, but it may not get you into one program over here. So we wanted to make sure that applicants had all the information and we didn't confuse them more. So what we did last year was we trialed out quartiles. We did it with a few UME programs in the US, because we were asking the applicants as well. We ask applicants, we ask the programs for their feedback, and it was like, we would like to give more feedback around the scores. So we trialed it out. We got some really good responses back from the programs and the applicants. And what we did was we gave the quartiles, which is we just emailed the applicants 4 weeks after their test and told them, you fell between the 0 to 25th percentile, or the 25th to the 50th, 50 to 75, or 75 to 100. As you can see on the screen, that's what they would have received. It gave them a little bit of feedback around it. So this year, we are rolling that out with everybody. Every single program that has implemented CASPer, the applicants will be getting their quartile back. And like I said, it is available 4 weeks after they take their test. The programs will receive their scores 2 weeks after they've taken the test, the 2-week turnaround. So 2 weeks after that, they will get their quartiles. I hope that makes sense. Next slide, please, Gabby. Okie doke. So we'll move on to the next one of Snapshot. So what is Snapshot? Again, Snapshot is one of our newer products. It came out 2 or 3 years ago. And essentially what Snapshot is, it is an asynchronous interview. So we have 3 set questions that the applicants have 2 minutes each to answer, and they just record themselves. There are practice options to take it, but once they go in and start recording one of the questions, they cannot redo it. Okay, so we want to make sure that they are prepared, are comfortable with the format before they jump in and actually start responding to the actual questions we ask. They have 2 minutes, and again, they don't have to take the full 2 minutes if they don't want to. They can submit once they feel they're finished. And it kind of, helps assess the communication, self-reflection, and motivation that you don't necessarily, suppose, get with CASPer, because, you don't see the applicants. It's only our raters that do that. And the questions are a little bit more mission focused. Okay, they want to know, why do you want to go into this profession? Why do you want to do this? And the applicant has that ability to express that within the video as well. The snapshot is rated by the programs, whereas CASPer is rated by the CASPer raters. The programs themselves will rate snapshot, because, like I mentioned, is program specific and a little bit more mission focused. So they're the experts in that field rather than us. So they will rate that for the snapshot. Snapshot takes 6 minutes because it's 2 minutes per video. So it's a very quick assessment. And yeah, I suppose, with CASPer, if you're applying to different verticals, let's say you're applying to medicine, but then you want to apply to veterinary, you will have to take 2 different CASPer tests. With snapshot, they may only have to take 1 snapshot, and the same videos will be sent to both medicine and to the veterinary programs if they're both requiring snapshot. Okay. Next slide, please. So what is Duet? One of our newer products that was launched this year, and it's only launched this year in undergraduate medicine. So I know we touched on it earlier. So Duet is a kind of a value alignment assessment. So we're looking at the program's values and the applicant's values to see if there's a match there. I suppose the last thing programs and applicants want is to go into a program or have an applicant join and then just feel, this actually isn't kind of the program for me. There's things in here that I want to focus on more that this program isn't focusing on. So Duet is able to do that. And it's a very quick assessment. So what happens is the programs will create their program profile. So they'll have multiple faculty, even some older students, fill out their program profile. And that'll be set in stone. Nobody sees that apart from the program. And then when applicants take their own profile, it will match and align to the program's ones. So it will say, let's say they want to look at program features, let's say, is one of the categories. It will tell them how much of an alignment they have with those applicants. It's a quick 15-minute test. It's done on the same platform as CASPer. It doesn't take long at all, and they get a single score overall for Duet. They also get the individual category scores as well. It really helps the programs to understand which applicants fit within their values within the program. I hope that makes sense. Next slide, please, Gabby. Oh, perfect. I'm passing it over to you now.
Yeah, you can pass it over to me now, Adam. Yeah. Thank you so much. So just as Adam was explaining with all of our assessments, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk us through our website, takealtus.com. So this is where applicants will go to reserve their assessments, to prep for the test, as well as to actually take the assessments. So this is kind of where everything lives for the applicant. And I just want to go through all the tabs of the website so you can get familiarized with them. And if you have any questions from your applicants, then you can direct them to this website as well. The first item that I do want to point out is that we have an applicant support team that's available, I want to say, around the clock. We have folks all the way in Australia also working in applicant support, helping out our applicants. So if you have somebody who at 3 a.m. has a very pressing question that they want to, ask somebody about Altus, about CASPer, they can send us a message and somebody will likely be able to get back to them at 3 a.m. as well. So after mentioning that applicant support chat bubble, the next thing I want to talk about is the assessments tab here. So this is pretty much what Adam went through, all the assessments that we have at Altus Suite. I won't be spending a lot of time here, but all the information we have here is available for applicants to review, to check the journey of the applicant in here as well. It's a 5-minute video. So all the information that applicants can have about CASPer and Duet and Snapshot will be available here. Then before I get on to the dates and fees page, I just want to talk about test prep and our FAQs. So when it comes to test prepping, we are aware that there are third-party companies out there that may charge maybe $500 to $1,000 to applicants and say that they'll help them get the best CASPer score they'll ever get. And we strongly discourage applicants from going to these companies. One, because of the financial burden that may cost. I mean, paying hundreds of dollars to prepare for a test, we don't want to add that additional burden to our applicants. But the second part is that these third-party companies, pretty much what they provide the applicants with is a sample test, which they can find on our website for free. And also, although these third-party companies may be offering some rating and feedback, we really don't know how they do it and how that could align with the way that we rate our own test officially. So all of our resources on our website are free of cost. Applicants do not have to pay an extra dime to use anything on our website. The only item that they have to pay for is the actual official CASPer test and any other additional assessments that may come with that. So on this test prep page, this would be the first place where I'd recommend that your applicants go to. As you can see, we have preparing for CASPer, and if I scroll down here, we got some questions regarding CASPer, some video-based scenarios that are available, and feel free to watch these and to look at the questions as well. All of this is available, once again, free of cost. And we also have word-based scenarios as part of CASPer, so it's not just a video, it's also, your applicants will also be faced with these word-based situational judgment scenarios. Then moving back here, preparing for snapshot, once again, we do have a practice section for snapshot that is available right before applicants have to go and take the official snapshot. So we have some preparation information about that. Finally, for duet as well, there really is no need to practice or prepare for duet just because it is it measures personal values and preferences. There's not really much preparation that needs to go into that other than the applicant just needing to trust their gut. There's no right or wrong answer. Then finally, here's some general tech tips. Just because CASPer is an assessment that is taken online, we've had applicants take it all the way, during a long haul flight from Asia to North America. So long as they had a good internet connection, they were able to take it. So we want to minimize any sort of distractions or technical issues that may happen during the test. And we have all these general tech tips that are also included before the applicant goes and takes the official CASPer test to ensure that any sort of technical issue that may happen does not end up happening. Now I'm just going to scroll back up here. And going over our frequently asked questions, these are questions that obviously our applicant support team have gathered throughout the cycles as we've been around, and just items that applicants tend to ask about. So we have them divided into general questions about Altus Suite, CASPer related questions, snapshot, duet related questions. And one of the things that I do want to point out here is accommodations. So we do provide applicants with accommodations. And the way that that works is that applicants just have to contact us 3 weeks in advance, and they have to fill out a form that we provide them with, and they need to get a physician's note for us to approve that accommodation, and it is on a case-by-case basis. So this cycle, all of our video scenarios do have closed captions, which as somebody who speaks English as a second language, I can tell you that closed captions are great. But other items that we accommodate with may include a scribe if it's somebody who's hard of vision, or if somebody who needs extra time to complete each CASPer scenario, then we can accommodate that on a case-by-case basis. The most important thing with accommodations is that they're completely confidential, so we do not tell programs if one of their applicants has requested an accommodation. Okay, so scrolling all the way back up here, I want to go over, actually, before we go over the dates and fees page, there's also a blog because, everybody likes to have a blog, and we do have some information here that can be helpful for your applicants as well. Just little tidbits of information that we've written over the years, and feel free to peruse those as well on your own time. But now let me just go over the dates and fees page. So this is where applicants will go and check the official CASPer test dates that their programs have signed up for. Before going to that, I just want to highlight that all test times are in North American Eastern time zone, unless indicated otherwise. As Adam mentioned earlier, we do have some programs in Australia, so they do have their own testing times. But for us in North America, we do run an Eastern time zone, and that is because we do live proctoring, and due to the human nature of rating as well, we need to stick to a very strict schedule of, the test happening in a certain date and time, so then we can send those results over to our raters. They can rate it and then send that back to us so we can score the Z-scores and upload it for programs. So next point to mention here is just these are all the items that the applicant will need in order to secure an Altus Suite account and reserve their tests. So once again, a government-issued photo ID, that could be a passport, driver's license, anything like that, a valid email address, hopefully that same email address that they use for every other type of communication they may have with regards to their admissions in a program. Also working webcam and microphone, once again, due to taking the test online and us doing live proctoring, we need to make sure that we're able to watch the applicant and also hear them if there's anything happening in the background. Lastly, they do need to have a reliable high-speed internet connection and a desktop or a laptop computer, so no phones and no tablets. Because of the way that the CASPer test is built, they need to have a working keyboard so they're able to watch the videos, read the questions afterwards, and then type from the comfort of their desktop or laptop computer. All right, so now going over the browse test dates and times, I am just gonna go over some steps here. Firstly, choose a country. Then secondly, I am going to go over our med schools first, and then I'm going to be going over veterinary medicine. But here, things to note are, this is a test that med school applicants will be taking. And this applies to med school applicants both in Texas and out of state. Moving below here, you can see a list of all of our participating programs. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to select 2 so you can see what the applicants are also seeing on their side. So here I can just scroll down once again. And the cool thing about this website is that it shows the applicant what the last possible test date available for all selected schools is. Because every school does have their own individual applicant admissions deadline, we want to make sure that the applicant is able to take the test and get in their scores before all of their deadlines for their admissions in those particular schools are completely closed. And here, as you can see, we do have some extra test dates available for Baylor College of Medicine, and here for Texas Tech El Paso as well. So all of this information is once again for applicants, and some of the items to note here include this little message here, for example, that Baylor does not require snapshot or duet, and we try to make that as clear as possible on our side so that applicants are not confused as to which assessments they may complete. There are some schools that do require duet and snapshot. Some of them only require CASPer, and we make that as clear as we can on our website, including here in the separate column. One thing to note is that on a smaller screen, this column may not show up. The applicant just has to scroll to the right to be able to see that. Once again, when they're fully signed on and reserved their test, they'll have access to all the assessments that they need to complete. Scrolling down a little bit more here, I just want to point out the fees for med school programs. So here's where you can find the fees for med school applicants when they have to take CASPer for those programs. And next thing I'm going to do is to scroll back up and go through the same steps, but for vet programs. So here I'm going to click on veterinary medicine. And as you can see, it's a different test name, a test ASTRA as we call it here. And that is because vet school applicants take the same test as all these other highlighted disciplines here. So scrolling down, let me just click on Texas A&M and Texas Tech University. And you'll see that once again, you have a different date here for last possible test date available for all schools. And pretty much additional information that we want applicants to know when they're reserving the test, the list of test dates available, and finally, the Altus Suite assessments that they need to complete. Moving below here, once again, we have information about our fees for vet school applicants. And now what I'm going to do is just quickly go over our reservation page. So this is my dummy account. I present this to all programs when they fully onboard with us. And what I'm going to do first is just go on the home page here. So here, as you can see, it's very straightforward, not a lot of distracting information. You once again have the applicant support chat bubble in case applicants do have questions that they need help with. Here's some information about preparation, and finally, some knowledge-based information that they may need, for instance, about accommodations and technical troubleshoot tips. So going over the Reserve Altus Suite button here, these are all, once again, the same steps that we saw on this other dates and fees page here is available here. So they once again have to choose program country, admission cycle, the type, school, and so on. And this is where the applicants will go to pay for their reservation. Going over this once again, something that I should have mentioned earlier is that we do honor FAP and JAMP for UME applicants. So that is something that we do offer on our site as well for those applicants who qualify for JAMP. And if that's the case, then we manually verify that they do qualify for JAMP. And we're working towards automating that process as well. So next year, next cycle, when we have applicants taking the test and they qualify for JAMP, they're automatically honored to take it at no cost. Going over the reservations page here. Here, as you can see, this is just an example of what it looks like when you have a CASPer test that you'll need to take. If the applicant also needs to take Snapshot or Duet for any other programs, then that will show up in here as well. But the item that I do want to highlight here is the systems requirements check. And once again, that's going over any sort of technical troubleshooting tips, anything that could go wrong with the technical side that we do not want it to go wrong. We have a full page here dedicated to that as well, so the applicants can check that all of their technical requirements are in place. Some things to note here, once again, the applicant needs to have a working desktop or a laptop, and they need to use Chrome or Firefox. So no Safari. I don't think Internet Explorer exists anymore, but before when it did, we always told applicants not to use Internet Explorer either. All right, now the final item, and I think that is the most exciting one out of this whole reservation page, is the the CASPer test practice test. So as you can see here, it says that it is not the official CASPer test. So we've had encounters where applicants take this practice test and they believe that it is the official one and that they're completely done. Then they miss their test date and then they have to reschedule it and all these logistical things. So we make it very clear that this is not the official CASPer test. This is just a sample practice test that they can take as many times as they need to. The whole point of this practice test is for them to get comfortable with the format, the kind of scenarios that will show up. Of course, there won't be any repetition between the scenarios shown here and the ones on the official CASPer test that they'll be taking. These scenarios here are mostly just scenarios that we've retired over the years. But things to know here as well is that you'll see that we have all of these sections available, including the video response section, so the applicants can get used to also talking to the camera. All right. So now that I've gone over the website here, I am just going to talk a little bit more about our research side. And let me just pull up the presentation again. And before I do that, I know that this is a huge wall of information, a lot of names here, but this is just a list of all UME schools requiring CASPer this cycle. Then moving forward, this is a list of schools requiring Snapshot and Duet this cycle. Obviously, it's subject to change this cycle. We've carried out some conversations with current Texas med schools that have discussed that they may want to use Snapshot and Duet next cycle. So obviously that's always subject to change, but this is what it is for now in this particular cycle. And then finally, this is the 2 vet programs that are requiring CASPer this 22-23 cycle as well. Then I would just want to talk briefly about our kind of a little bit more on the research side, just to give you a bit of information about our reliability. So as Adam said earlier, Altus did come out of med school here in Ontario, Canada. So we continue to focus on the academics and the research side. And we've taken initiatives to QA internally to check that the content across all of our test settings have a strong reliability. And our goal is to get to an alpha of 0.7, and we've passed that to 0.8. So it shows that we have some pretty strong level of internal consistent reliability. Secondly, when it comes to strong levels of inter-rater reliability, we also saw that we have a 0.85 to that. And what that means is that sometimes we do have 2 different raters independently rating the same scenario, and we see how different their evaluation of that scenario is. And we notice that it's pretty reliable. It tends to be very similar. We see that there's a pattern that our raters tend to rate the same numbers to all of the same scenarios independently without knowing that the other one is doing so as well. Moving forward, I just want to talk a little bit more about validity, and I'm just going to keep this pretty high level. We do have a lot of case studies uploaded on our website as well, which you can check after. But we have found some meaningful relationships with admissions, preclinical, and clinical professionalism indicators. And this is something that we've observed across all health professions. So not just undergraduate medicine, but we also have some studies with vet schools, with PA programs as well. So this is something that we're happy to see and proud to say that we're we're noticing that there is a correlation with in-program performance. And I'm going to give a brief example about that. Just going to keep it very high level again. But with Tulane University School of Medicine, we examined how the CASPer Z-score relates to third-year clerkship grade. And we also noticed that a 1 unit increase in CASPer also increases the odds of getting honors in clerkship at this med school. Now, this graph can be a little confusing because you see that this pass line is going down. But one thing to note here is that this is going down because when the applicant had a stronger CASPer score with a 1 unit increase, then they were more likely to get either a high pass or an honors. So the higher the CASPer score they got, the more likely they were to get either an honors or a high pass in their clerkship grade. Moving on, I just want to talk briefly about our resources here. So Adam and I will be sharing our email addresses. Feel free to write it down, and we'd be happy to send that over to you. Some things to note is that we have a sample test that's a shortened version of what you saw on our website, and that is a sample test that we usually send out to our programs so they can just get comfortable, get a better idea of what the applicant goes through when they're taking CASPer. Secondly, we also have a recorded advisor webinar that we carried out back in March that we'd be happy to send your way as well. And thirdly, I think that this is the most important point, is that we have an FAQ for advisors as well. With all the questions that we tend to get from advisors, we created a whole document that we'd be happy to send your way. And finally, we have an applicant communication kit, which is information that we provide programs with so they can update their websites, any sort of admissions information that they send out to their applicants. We have that language ready for them to use. Oops, I actually opened that by accident, but let's go back here. All right, so now we're just gonna move over to the Q&A, and we'd be happy to take your questions.
All right, thank you all so much. Lots of great information. I'm actually going to hand it over to Selima to help moderate some of the questions that have been coming in. And I do want to send a huge shout out to all of the advisors who've been watching the session, sending us some great, thoughtful questions. We're going to try to get through all of these as quickly as possible, but we do want to be mindful of our guest time today. Of course, if you all have any follow-up questions, you're very welcome to reach out to Anna or Gabriela. Or if you have any questions for us here at TMD-SAS, we're very happy to address those. You can send us an email at info@tmdsas.com. So I'll hand it over to you, Selima.
Thank you, Enrique. So I'll go ahead and get started with the first question that we received from Leslie. And then from there on, I'll kind of pile these together, kind of how they relate to one another. So it'll flow. And I'll display it now. So the question is, can you provide an example of the kind of feedback a student might receive regarding their CASPer score?
Yeah, so I can take that one briefly, and Adam, you can add on to it. Thank you so much for your question, Leslie. So the kind of feedback that we provide applicants with is they get the quartile report. So they do get a quartile, so they know where they fell in relation to their peers. Some things to note is that if an applicant falls, let's say on the 50th, the 25th to the 49th quartile or below that, it does not mean that they have failed the CASPer test. It doesn't mean that they have that they lack empathy or anything like that, but rather what that means is that other applicants were able to outperform them. Half of them were able to outperform them. So the kind of feedback that we provide them with is just what each quartile means, and we have that available on our FAQ page.
That's perfect answer. No need for me to jump in. Sorry, I just cleared my throat because I saw the next one that kind of relates into it as well. So
Yeah, let me go ahead and get that one. Let's see, which one were you looking at, Adam? I'll go ahead and bring that one in.
Yeah, Marilyn's question, I suppose, what advice suggestion can we give a panicked applicant who has been told that they fell in between the 0 to 25th quartile score? And it's a good question. The last thing we want to do is panic anybody, and that's one of the reasons that we were all so hesitant around giving feedback and scores to applicants. And we do give them in that FAQ page rationale of what the percentile is. But some feedback that you can potentially give them is, and I mentioned it earlier, programs use scores in different ways. Some of them use it in a cutoff or a formula or even impressionistically. It doesn't mean that they're not going to get into their program because they fell into the 0 to 25th percentile. It's like, that's the most reassuring thing you can probably tell them, is programs use it in different ways. And I know a lot of them don't post how they use CASPer, so it's hard to gauge. But if they use it impressionistically, they take so many different metrics into consideration, whether it's, the MCAT or interviews or, essays or references. There's a number of different factors that they take into consideration, and there's not always, say, a mathematical equation associated to it. So just because they fell between the 0 and 25th does not mean that they have to panic that they may not get into their program as well. They use it in a number of different ways.
All right, thank you, Adam, for answering that.
Can I add to that real quick?
Yeah.
So I'm like Mike Wazowski with the comment over my face, but I'm still here. We actually brought in the admissions deans from the Texas member institutions to actually share some insights about how they use CASPer. So we did hear that there are some schools that will use CASPer as a means to count in students as part of, to bring them into interviews. Other times it's used in conjunction with interviews, and it kind of reveals larger patterns. So in no institution in Texas are we seeing that our member institutions are actually using CASPer or MCAT or GPA as the end-all be-all. It's a tool that helps our member institutions kind of capture these larger trends that they may be seeing in other parts of the application.
All right, I'll go ahead and move on to the next question. Similar to that, on a similar thought here. So let's see. If this test is supposed to measure empathy and other positive traits, a student who has a disorder such as psychopathy can learn to do well on a test like this. What is the research for this?
Good question. And it's something we have popped up, I suppose, in the past with programs, and it's something that we don't have as much research, I don't think, on. I mean, what we're essentially doing is looking for the most genuine reason applicants would do such an activity, I suppose, within the dilemmas. Just like it would be in an interview, when whether you're using a SGT multi-mini interview or just a standardized interview, it'll be something similar as well. So I think one of the things that we say with CASPer is it's not a silver bullet. It's not going to tell you exactly who the most empathetic person is in your program. And that's why we do say, we have 10 overarching constructs that we're trying to measure within it. And our raters are well aware if somebody is trying to, explain their answer, but isn't maybe the most articulate, they will still perform well on CASPer as long as they can get that down, whether it's, just a few sentences or, little points. They're going to get there. I don't think we have specific research on that topic, unfortunately, but it's definitely something that we would like to look into, I think. But because at Altus, we don't get all of the information on the applicant as well. We do have a survey at the end of the test where we do ask a lot of demographic information. It's optional to take. But if we could collaborate with some of our partner programs that have that information that we could share and look into the data of, we would be more than happy to do that. But I don't think we have the exact data on if they do have a disorder like this. We do have a number of accommodations that we do offer within the test itself. So I think Gabby mentioned them earlier. We have, time extensions. We do allow the use of a scribe or a reader. We have closed captions on all videos now. We do try and be as accommodating as possible, and there is a section on our FAQs as well around accommodations that they can look into.
All right, I missed the first question, the first part of this 3-part question, so I'll go ahead and switch it back to the first one. So students report having opposite scores for CASPer and AMC's preview. Both are SJTs. How do you reconcile this?
Do you want me to take that one, Gabby?
I can start off, and Adam, you can add on. LC2123, that's a really good question. So I'm really intrigued to hear more about these students who report having those opposite scores because, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a volunteer survey that applicants can take at the end for us to capture information. And through there, sometimes we're able to also interview these applicants. And I feel like from there, we'd be able to capture whether they've completed both CASPer and Preview. We're aware that there are some programs that are using both. And we would love to carry out research with the AAMC as well to see these opposing scores that they're seeing, if there's a correlation, if there's something that they're capturing that we're not capturing. So it's definitely something that we cannot answer right away, but it is a project and an idea that we really would love to do in the future.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great question. Something we've been, we want to explore further. We would love to kind of do a collaboration with the AAMC to have a look. The test formats are different. The AAMC's is a multiple choice format, so it's choose one of these. Ours is that open-ended response. So from studies that we have done in the past, because I know let's say in the UK, they for the UCAT, they have a multiple choice one there. From what they found when they did look into CASPer and that version of it, the multiple choice one's a little bit more, I wouldn't say coachable, but if it's pick your top 5 out of this, sometimes it's easier to get you're going to get in the top 2 to figure out which may be the correct answer as well. Ours is a little different because you have to explain and give your responses that way as well. So we're looking for the most genuine answer out of those applicants. So, but it's a really good question, something that we do want to look into. I know that this is the second year that SJT Preview is being used. So hopefully maybe at the end of the year, we could potentially have a little bit more data around it. We can be able to answer that a little better for you.
All right. I'll go ahead and move it on to the next question. I think this is what a lot of our applicants are also wondering. When is the best time to take this test when applicants are overwhelmed with primaries, secondaries, and other exams like MCAT?
Yeah, I can take that as well. So we are aware that everybody's super overwhelmed when it comes to applying to med school and vet school as well. And as you saw earlier on our website, we do have a lot of test dates available. So we would suggest obviously saying that the earlier you take it, the better, because you get it out of the way and then you can focus on other parts of your admissions or your applications. But at the same time, we have a lot of test dates available. So it really is up to the discretion of your programs that they're applying to and when their deadlines are happening. You want to make sure that you have your test dates for CASPer happening before that deadline obviously goes past. So anytime in between those, in between when we first open the cycle, which is at the beginning of May, up until when the program deadline is happening, anytime would be great. But we strongly recommend that they take it at the beginning of the cycle so that they take it and then they don't have to worry about CASPer anymore.
Great, thank you for sharing that. All right. And so this question is the next one, as well as I'm sure applicants will be asking this in tomorrow's session. But if you can remind us, how much do students pay to take all 3 assessments?
Good question, and it's something that's come up, and we do have it on our site as well at the bottom of the dates and fees page. So essentially, you only have to pay to take CASPer. There is no cost associated with Duet or Snapshot. Those assessments are free. The applicant just pays to take CASPer. So for undergraduate medicine, that cost is an $85 flat fee, which covers up to 8 distributions. And to take the test for veterinary, it is $40 to take the test, and then $12 per distribution, Gabby?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, $12 for each program you want to send your scores to. So if you're sending your scores to one veterinary program, it's going to cost you $52. But there's no cost associated to Duet or Snapshot.
Okay. And just similarly, just to make sure we're clear on this part of the question, we had another question from Marilyn. Must students pay for the entire Altus Suite, or can they pay a la carte? For example, if their schools only require CASPer, but not Snapshot or Duet. Also, is there a fee assistance program? So if you can just touch on that and just hit it home for us all.
Of course, I can take that. So Marilyn, thank you for your question. As Adam mentioned earlier, so applicants only have to take per CASPer. And when it comes to Snapshot and Duet, there's no cost associated with those. for the fee assistance program, we do provide that for undergraduate medicine applicants. We do have a FAP in place for them, as well as JAMP. And applicants can, when they're going through the reservation page and they're reserving, they just have to say that they qualify for either FAP or JAMP. And then from there, we manually verify that they do qualify for that on our side. So they just have to upload a proof that they do qualify, and then we manually verify on our side, and then they don't have to worry about paying for the test.
All right, thank you guys for answering that. You guys mentioned a little bit about the medical and vet assessments. They're kind of similar, but if you can just explain what those differences might be. So for this particular question, can you be more specific why there are different forms of the exam between medical applicants and vet applicants? How do they differ? And a follow-up question that we had with that was, why is it cheaper for the vet applicants?
Very good question. So the tests were originally we did have them all together, but we did see a slight skew in applicant scores with medicine. So it was skewing the results for other programs in health sciences. So we just which was disadvantaging them in that case. So we decided to split them out. The tests are very similar. The questions will always be different, as I mentioned. So if you are applying to one, say a vet program and UME, and you're taking both tests, they're not going to be the exact same tests. They're going to be slightly different. The cost difference is what we found was medical applicants were applying to a lot more schools than health science applicants, let's say. So the average medical applicants, let's say, applies to 8. So that's why we did an $85 base fee for 8 programs. The average applicant for health science is usually applying to 3, I think it was. So to set off our costs with the test and the rating and everything, we try to balance it out. So it's pretty much standard across the board when we're looking at what a medical applicant is paying and what let's say, for example, a veterinary applicant will be paying.
And actually, to add on to that, just as a piece of information, if you're curious, we've done some internal analyses as well to see for Texas UME applicants in particular, and we've noticed that for an applicant who, let's say, for example, sends their scores to Baylor College of Medicine, for example, they're 90 to 95% of them are likely to send their scores to that particular med school, as well as other med schools around Texas. So there's a lot of overlap in between where we have those applicants who pay the $85 fee, and then they're sending it to only not just one school in particular, but at least 2 other schools around the same state in Texas.
Thank you guys for answering that. All right, let's see. So is there a way for advisors to take a practice of each of these assessments? Follow-up question we also had from Leslie, similar to that, is there a way for us to do a sample duet test? So can the advisors take a practice exam?
Yes. So sorry, we have the practice exam for CASPer, and it's the only practice exam we have. So as Gabby ran through earlier, the applicants can take that once they've set up for their profile, and we will send the link over to you, or we can share it with you, Selena, and you can share it with the programs. But that is a smaller test, so it just gives you, I think, maybe 6 or so questions within there. You'll see the typed ones, you'll see the AV ones. You unfortunately won't get a result or a score, but it just helps you with the format and be able to explain that to the applicants as well. We don't have sample tests for Snapshot and for Duet for you to share. Unfortunately, the applicants can practice for Snapshot when they've registered for it. So there's a leading up to it. They can practice answering a couple of questions on camera and things like that. It's more like to be familiarized with your background, make sure it's somewhat tidy, let's say. And Duet, because it's relatively new, we don't have a practice one for it, because essentially it's just please choose A or B, and then it'll go on. It's just a multiple choice choosing between values. So unfortunately, we don't have something like that in the works right now, because it'll be hard to just do a practice one for it. But we definitely could. I'm sure our product team will be looking into that. It's a good question.
So feel free to write down our email addresses, as you can see here, and then we'd be happy to send you that sample CASPer test.
Yes, and I'll go ahead and add those email addresses in the chat as well, just so it's on here. But in the meantime, can you go ahead and answer this other question for me? Wasn't Duet established for GME? It doesn't seem appropriate for undergrads. Are the values of the various professional schools varied enough to make a difference?
you want to jump, Gabby? Do you want me to jump in?
I can jump in and then you can add on. So yes, Duet was established for GME at first. I believe that we're in our second or third cycle with GME programs using Duet. And we noticed that it could also add value to undergraduate medicine as well, which is why we've adopted it. However, the content of Duet is different for UME programs as it is for GME. Well, that actually ties into your second question about the values of various professional schools. So the way that we built Duet was with the advice of different med schools in the US as well. We interviewed them, we got together, and through those conversations that we had with them, we were able to come up with the values that you find in Duet as well, and that applicants have to choose. And from there, they're able to make their profile, and then we compare the profiles with the program profile. So I understand why you may think that it's varied enough, that everybody has their own different values and assessments and so on, but we were able to capture as much information as we could from these med schools before we went in and blueprinted for Duet. And Adam, feel free to add anything that I might have missed.
No, I answered it perfectly. And yeah, we do see some differences. And our research team is excited because they are working with these programs now that have been using Duet for the last couple of years, so that we can share that with you, the applicants, and other programs as well, to show that the benefit of Duet and how it's impacted their application process. So we'll be sharing those as soon as they're published.
Thank you, guys. Another question. So this is for you, Adam. You mentioned that students can retake the CASPer exam and will have to take it each application year. It was my impression that this was one and done test. Do you mind touching back on that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it can only be done once within the application cycle. But if an applicant wants to take it again the following year or needs to take it again for an application, they must retake it. And again, that's just because the test is being developed and you are being compared against the peers applying with you. And chances are, if you are taking it again, it means maybe you didn't do as well with the first time around, and it gives you that opportunity to retake it. Maybe you hadn't prepared as much for it and taken the practice test or weren't familiarized with it. It gives you that opportunity to retake it again. But we do have applicants retake it just on like the following test cycle. So they can only take it once per test cycle within that vertical. After that, they must retake it again, because the way that the CASPer test is rated, they're being compared to with the peers that also took CASPer along with them. So they would have been compared to peers for a previous year that is going into their cohort. So they must retake it again. I hope that answers it.
I guess to add on to your point, Adam, if you have an applicant who's applying to both med school and a vet program in the same cycle, then they will have to take two separate tests, because they are two completely separate test masters, different cohorts and everything, and different applicant pools. So that's just on to add. If you do have an applicant who's applying to veterinary school and also med school, they will have to take separate ones, but they will have to take it only once per cycle. So if they have to apply again next cycle, then they'll have to retake CASPer.
Thank you guys for clarifying that. We have another question. So why score as a comparison to the pool rather than against an established set of expectations? I think you guys kind of mentioned it a little bit or touched a little bit on this, but if you can just provide us like a more clarifying response.
Yeah, I can get that started, and Adam, feel free to chime in after. So a comparison to the pool rather than an established set of expectations, it's because with CASPer, we really want to see how that applicant performs in relation to their peers. It's kind of like comparing, well, how good is this answer compared, or how well critically thought out is one answer compared to another answers. So there's no pass or fail with CASPer, no right or wrong answer, but really we want to see how the applicant is able to critically think about the situation and how they do that in comparison to how other applicants taking that same test are critically thinking about it. So that's why we do a comparison of the applicant pool rather than comparing the applicant pool to something that's already so static, such as an established set of expectations, saying, well, this applicant doesn't meet the right expectations. Maybe the responses were just as great, but not the expectation that we're looking for. So because of that, we do want to have the applicant just getting rated against all the other applicants taking the same test.
That's a great answer. And with CASPer, there's no right or wrong answer. So we don't want to be the ones that set that correct answer, because everybody has different views, different values. And having a correct or wrong or right answer means that you can potentially fail or pass the CASPer test. It's just really not, that's not how it's set up to do. So, and again, like Gabby said, it's how we kind of run it for now.
Thank you, guys. Speaking of values, We have a follow-up. Can we see a list of the values that are identified for duet? What about cultural differences?
Yeah, we have 3 categories within Duet. We have, so there'll be 7 questions or comparisons around mission and culture. There'll be ones on teaching and learning and program features as well. So essentially it's going to say within the, say, the mission and culture category, there's going to be, which do you rate higher? A or B? There'll be 7 sections, and then they'll be like, okay, and then it'll be, which do you rate higher? A or C? And they'll go through this and just say, from your perspective, which do you rate higher? So it shouldn't impact too much, I suppose, on cultural differences, because the program are doing the same thing from their perspective. That's why we get the program not to have one person fill out their program profile that is like, yep, this is my point of view. What we want to do is we have them get at least 10 to 20 or so faculty members, and like we said, some students will take that as well for them if they can, and they'll get the average value score for them. It's not just one person or just a couple of group of people doing it. We're trying to get a varied response so that they can create their program profile of what those values are and how that applicant can essentially align with them. Sorry.
All right, thank you, Adam. And it looks like we have one more question. So this is from, let's see, what proportion of exams given are taken with accommodations?
Good question. I'm not sure if I know that number.
Yeah, I mean, we would have to see the percentage of applicants that have requested and we've approved accommodations for. We don't have that number off the top of my head. We'd have to ask somebody in our applicant support team. But I guess that means that we're looking at how many applicants are requesting accommodations, but not rather like what the content of the exam will be, change for the accommodation that the applicant will need. If the applicant does require an accommodation, then we'll ensure that they get whatever accommodation they require. Sometimes they just need to have an extra few minutes to respond to each scenario. Sometimes they need to have a scribe. We used to have closed captions as well. So anything that is on a case-by-case basis, we can look at if we can accommodate. But it wouldn't be that the test itself, only some parts of it are accommodated and other parts not, but rather if the applicant requests an accommodation, then the whole test will have that accommodation included.
And that information is kept confidential as well. Our raters don't know if an applicant has an accommodation, and we don't inform the programs as well if an applicant had an accommodation as well. That stuff is kept confidential.
Yeah, thank you guys for letting us know about that. And so I did want to mention very quickly that we did have this question. As you guys know, we have a session similarly like this, but for our applicants tomorrow, same time, same place, 1 p.m. Central Time on our TXHES YouTube page. Like this session, it will also be recorded and readily available for anyone to watch at a later time right after the session ends. So roughly around 2 p.m. Our time is whenever that'll be available for our applicants to watch if they can't make it to the session tomorrow. And this session will, of course, be available right after we log off. It'll be available on our TXHES page as well.
Adam and Gabriela, thank you both so much for your patience with walking us through and answering our 10,000 questions that came in, record timing. And to all of our advisors out there, hopefully this helped to bring a little bit of ease in being able to address some of these questions that are coming to you from our applicants. You have contact information for folks over at Altus now. You know who to get a hold of. Altus team, any parting words for our advisors?
Just let us know if you have questions, please reach out. We want to make sure things are as easy for you and the applicants as possible. We want to be extremely transparent. So if you have questions or if you find yourself getting the same questions so many times, maybe that means we need to update something on our site for that communication towards the applicants. Just let us know. Please do.
Yeah, everything Adam said.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much again, and we'll see y'all tomorrow. And advisors out there, we're happy to be partners with you all, and we wish you all the best of luck in working with your students and seeing them be successful. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.